Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Grossman Files. Hey, we got a great one for you today. Yes. We got a great one for you today. We are carrying on with the Wendy Savino archives. Yes. So how's everyone out there doing today? I started a half an hour early. Probably that's why we don't have as big a crowd as we normally do, but that's all right. The gang's all here. The stalwarts are all here today, ready to learn about the Wendy Savino archives. And of course, the Wendy Savino archives are hella interesting to me. Hold on a second. Let me just center this a little bit better. I'm like OCD that way. Okay. They're very interesting to me, of course, as a Son of Sam researcher, because she basically had all the newspapers in real time, collecting them in real time as the Son of Sam spree was happening in real time. So we get to see by just perusing the articles, just looking from the first article to the last article, the ramping up of fear, the propaganda campaign, in the sense that if the media was perpetrating onto the public with these myths of Son of Sam about long brown hair, and he only killed young women with long brown hair, and he was a lover's lane killer, and all these other debunked mythology, of course, that we've spent quite a bit of time completely demolishing the last couple of years, in addition, of course, to demolishing the work of the liar, the wig wearer, the bullier, the manipulator, the abuser, the chain smoker, the drunkard, the not good friend, the guy who would send you 1,500 feet this way when you're ready to limit 1,500 feet that way, the spiritually sick snap suture lover, and the man whose mind was veritably obsessed and drenched with the yellow liquid that we commonly call urine. Mr. Maury Terry. Yes. That stuff's all. I mean, anyone still talking about Maury Terry as dogged and honest is, quite frankly, you're insane. I mean, come on. Just all you need to do is watch Billy the Artist, and that should disavow you or disabuse you of any notions of Maury Terry as full of integrity. But whatever, you're in the rear view mirror, and we've all moved on. So, of course, yeah, the Wendy Savino archives are super interesting. So how I've decided to do this was how I kind of originally thought I was going to do this. We're taking it from the beginning last week, and today we're starting from where we left off. We're starting, the Trail of Terror begins. And it's actually quite an interesting journey of this. So did I miss the not good friend? Did I miss the manipulator? I might have. That came on a little too early in the show. I wasn't quite prepared for it. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, he was a not good friend. Can you imagine lying to your friends like Maury Terry did? Especially victims like Carl Denaro, like just basically bullshitting them. Yeah, I know who your shooter was. It was one of two females. One was called Amy, and one was called Big-Breasted Wendy. I mean, first of all, Big-Breasted Wendy, are you effing kidding me? Are you out of your mind? These were Satanists. They're going to use the proper term breasted. That was really her nickname. There goes Big-Breasted Wendy over there. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, a little discernment is in order here. It's hilarious. But Wendy's archives are amazing, and I'm finding new stuff in them every day. And again, the caveat to this show that I want to make sure that everybody understands is that I have not flipped the switch, and I'm relying, like so many low-level researchers do, or alleged researchers do. I'm not relying on newspaper articles to prove anything or this is strictly a sociological survey through the times. We are experiencing the terror in this series, the Wendy Savino archives, as the city of New York experienced it, and of course as the Savino family experienced it, because ultimately these archives that we have all came from the Savino family. I think collected by the husband while in New York, because remember, Wendy was in England from 1977 to 1979. But there are some English articles in there from English newspapers, which is quite interesting. So we got a lot to do. We're going to get into it in a minute. But first, I was sent this. Now, you all know I'm in the process, right? You all know I'm a process member. I'm an intergenerational Satanist. I was put here specifically in 2021 to discount the process's involvement in Son of Sam. And the way that I did it was by fooling all of you to think that I was a Maury Terry fan, when in reality, I was always planning on flipping the script. And yes, the process, the satanic cult, it really cared so much about keeping its public image positive that they put me out here to do it all for you. So of course, I have all this power. I'm CIA connected. My father was Operation Mockingbird, who was in charge of Epstein's Island. So obviously I have a lot of power. Now, I mean, I don't know. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't know how I'm using this power to my advantage. But my process handlers just sent me new videotape. And of course, they got this exclusively through their contacts, their high-level Satanist contacts at NYPD, who were able to get them archival footage of Berkowitz's arrest. Now, I showed you video of it once, but I found a different angle this time. So, everybody, without further ado, let's just watch this very brief 4-second clip of the moment Berkowitz was arrested. I hope you guys find this edifying, enjoyable, something new that you've never seen before. And here it is. That's it. We got it. We found it. We found it. So anyway, let me get up my proper my proper PowerPoint here. So of course today we are starting with The Trail of Terror Begins, and we have this thumbnail of Wendy here with some phantom arms hands on her. I couldn't get those out. And we see here one of her file folders with one of the newspapers that she gave me, and of course Berkowitz always lurking, because this dude knows what he did. He knows he's guilty. One of the things that he said to the cops at the interrogation that I found was very interesting, even though he denied shooting Wendy, just like he denied shooting Carl Denaro, he denied shooting Stacy Moskowitz, he denied shooting Lomino Damasi, he denied shooting basically everybody. He told the cops, he said, boy, if I saw all this evidence against me, I'd think I was guilty too. I mean, this is a direct quote from Berkowitz. So, that was a tell right there. Berkowitz did this. We found a new victim. It has completely altered the landscape of the Son of Sam case. It's completely flipped the script and rewritten the history. And of course, it's taking quite a little while for it to penetrate, but it's penetrating slowly but surely. The wider culture is waking up to this fact. Some interesting things are happening behind the scenes, which you guys will all find out about when they actually happen, regarding Wendy and her story and the wider Son of Sam story in general. So today we're gonna just basically resume from where we left off. Now, as you all know, so Rodney said, I watched a video the other day on the satanic panic of the 1920s, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm sure that there was moral panics back then. Church ladies back then moralizing from kids listening to jazz back then, or flappers. In the 80s, it was Ozzy Osbourne and Twisted Sister and Metal Church and Venom and all that. So, in every era, there's always going to be church ladies. The modern church ladies, of course, all think that they're so counterculture when in reality, they're no difference from Dana Carvey on Saturday Night Live. So anyway, we got quite a bit to do today. So, of course, I wanted to show you some more pictures before we got into the articles. And this is one of her files, my file in England, and apparently updated which is really cool because this is old Wendy writing and this is new Wendy writing, and we can see the D is exactly the same. So I did not see it. Well, of course, let me just pull it out here. I have now seen it, and I've scanned it, and we're showing all of this stuff in my private Facebook group. The Son of Sam cult or no cult, son of whatever the hell it's called. There's only 30 of us in that group, and that's kind of how I like it. I'm very selective about who I let in. So we're seeing all this exclusive stuff there, and of course I'll bring to YouTube the more interesting articles that I think everyone should see. But there's just so much stuff that I've scanned over the last day or 3 days that I can't do shows on it all. But we're gonna see quite a lot of it. So my shooting, SOS, of course, vintage file folder. You can see it's yellowed at the edges here. SOS. She's been saying that she was shot by David Berkowitz ever since she saw his picture in the newspaper. So just little fun things, the little historical things that I kind of wanted to show you, because again, what access do we have with any other Son of Sam victim like we have, where we have family photographs, right? Joe and Wendy. I'm sure this was in the Bronx, but then again, I'm not sure. Could be anywhere. But Joe and Wendy and the kids. And they had a oh no, I didn't even notice until now. They had what looks like a German Shepherd. Conspiratards, I know you're gonna go nuts about that. But once again, y'all are nuts. So anyway, just more pictures. Here's Wendy and the kids in a snowstorm. Not sure exactly where. Could be anywhere. This was obviously before the shooting. The kids were younger, and we see that her eye here, her right eye is intact. And this, of course, is Jay, her son, who's the one who all the family members participate, but he's the one who's the most comfortable to go on camera. And more pictures of the, I guess it was all female. I guess back then, they didn't, they had women's races, like strictly women's go-kart. So Wendy was off the track here, looking like she's determined to get back on. And of course, that bespeaks to her personality and her will to live and her will to survive and to keep fighting, which is what kept her alive during David Berkowitz's onslaught when he came up to her smiling in that parking lot on April 9th, 1976, day after he leaves New Rochelle all angry about dogs, which of course is his pattern, which is another thing that he confirmed, by the way. David Berkowitz absolutely 100% unequivocally confirmed my what was just a theory, but was pretty obvious, that whenever he went nuts about dogs and wrote a letter, someone was going to get shot. Something was going to get shot. We saw it 4 times. We saw it with Virginia Voskerichian. We saw it with the Netto dogs. We saw it with the Harvey dog. We saw it with Valentina Suriani, because that was when he was going crazy about dogs. And of course, we saw it with Wendy Savino. So just, more interesting photos. I like to humanize people that I'm talking about here. And so we see more pictures of Wendy in her Isle of Man scooter race. And here we have Wendy in the Isle of Man scooter race again. I guess this was either the opening or the closing. I'm not quite sure. And we could see that profile, which of course we're also familiar with now. And of course, some more photographs of her. I believe this is in Morocco. I could be wrong about that, but Wendy was telling me that it was so hot there, they had to take like 3-4 showers a day. So I just thought you guys would enjoy this. And of course, Wendy was 38 when she was shot by David Berkowitz. She had a pixie blonde haircut. Thereby, of course, demolishing the myths of the long blonde brown hair and young teenage girls. And of course, she was shot with a 32. We don't know what happened to that gun. Berkowitz had an arsenal of guns. He was a killer of people and an assaulter of people with multiple different weapons, knives, guns, Molotov cocktails, shotguns, rifles with scopes, and so on and so forth. And here's more of Wendy in Morocco. I'm just going to say it was Morocco. And if she corrects me, I'll let you know. So you can see how hot it was there. I guess she's wearing like a sheet or something. And she told me this was after like one of the incessant showers that they took down there. So Wendy's life is extremely interesting. Someone should do a biography on her. Her story is incredible. Her family's story is incredible. The Son of Sam story is incredible. This was really, honestly, this was a 1 in a million thing that we found with Wendy, and it's not going to happen again. We're certainly looking for other victims, without a doubt. But Wendy was just a one-off, 1 in a million special. I mean, what are the odds that we do this work, we find what we think is a victim, and then when we cold call this person who we never knew and she had no idea we existed, she confirmed to us our hypothesis. And not only that, she hits us with this incredible story about how she told people and no one would listen. She even told law enforcement. She told the Bronx DA, as we'll see a little later, and there was no response. And that's one of the critiques the story's getting. Well, if she told everybody, how come no one did it? No one believed her, because they were infected just like we all were. They were infected with the mythology of spiritually sick Rupert Murdoch and his spiritually sick New York Post back then, talking about, oh, it was only long brown hair, and oh, it was young girls in lovers' lanes. So no one believed Wendy. And they didn't even go to law enforcement after they were dissed by the Bronx district attorney. So we were the first people to come around in 50 years that actually not only believed her, but we found her. She was this was an old story to her. She had moved on in life, essentially, even though she still to this day carried the sketch in her purse. So yeah, as Super Strikes say, victims aren't believed all the time, especially if they're the victim of an internationally famous serial killer who had a story, a mythology built around him that was too powerful to break. Also, I think that there was, and I haven't gotten confirmation of this, I don't think that there's any way that we can, but I am virtually convinced that there was bad blood between Joe Savino, the husband, who was a prominent Republican in the Bronx, and Mario Marola, the Bronx district attorney, who was a prominent Democrat. And the Bronx is is probably the most corrupt borough in the entire New York City, which makes it one of the most corrupt boroughs in all of the world. And the Democrats here in the Bronx still to this day are incredibly corrupt. So I can only imagine what the Democrats were up to back in the old days. And I think there, within that nexus of the fact that these two men, Marola and Savino, were not only different political persuasions, but also ex-NYPD. There was something there that caused this investigation to not get started or off the ground. I truly believe that. I would love to be able to flesh this all out. And who knows? Maybe I will. Everybody's been saying, Manny, write a book. And my pat answer was always like, you have the effing video series. What do you need a book for? I've already done the work. It's already here for you to see, better than any book, because it's me talking. It's with visuals. But people seem to want a book. Maybe I'll spend the winter writing a book. Who knows? But anyway, we got quite a bit to do. So let's just pick up where we left off, shall we? You know, another thing, because Super Strike is being very talkative today, which I like, because Super Strike doesn't normally say this much, and I like this. This just reminded me that, you know, Joe Savino, the husband, was an ex-detective. this, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with that, but I don't know. That was just the thought that was forming that I don't exactly know where I was going. I had fleshed it. I had come up with this thought earlier today, but I can't quite remember where I was going with that. But both him and Marola were ex cops, and Savino was an ex detective. So I don't know. I think that there's a story there. But anyway, where we left off. So of course, where we left off in last show was the first articles that were sitting at the bottom of the pile. Incredibly emotional for me, because this was when the Savino family first started realizing, because again, they clipped this out of the newspaper. This is not taken from the internet. This is a scan of the actual article that probably Joe Savino clipped out from the newspaper back in real time. That's what's so cool about this. He saw, oh, that's what I remember. He saw this, and he was an ex-detective. This wasn't just like a layman going, oh, I think my wife's case might be related to this. And remember, there was another detective who thought the same. It was the detective who put Wendy's file into Donna Lauria's case folder. So NYPD detectives, both active and retired, in real time thought that Wendy's case was connected to this Lauria case, which we now know, of course, is the Son of Sam case. So this is where we left off, and this is where we're going to begin today. So now what's interesting about the archives in Wendy's archives is there's nothing on Denaro or Lomino Damasi. The archives, there's a gap between Lauria and Freund, the first and the fourth. Now, what makes that so interesting to me as a sociologist and as a historian, as a true crime person, is that these were shootings that happened in Queens. And there was also no Son of Sam yet. There wasn't yet this ramped up massive New York Post and Daily News and media blitz covering everything all the time about the Son of Sam, instilling fear into people. These were two random shootings that happened in Queens, and they barely made the newspaper. So probably what happened was Joe Savino, who was collecting these articles while Wendy was in England, freaking out, wondering which hitman was after her that had her address, right? That's what the hell she was going through. I think that the Lomino Damasi and the Denaro shootings both went under the radar. And that's kind of interesting because it also tracks what was happening in New York City, in the wider New York City. Denaro got no traction and Lomino Damasi got no traction because nobody knew that this was going to be an ongoing shooting spree by David Berkowitz. And as an aside, I was wondering whether I was going to say this or not, but I think I do now that I'm bringing up Denaro. I saw a comment that Denaro made. Now, he's a victim of Son of Sam, and for that, he deserves some modicum of respect, even though I loathe Carl Denaro. I think he's a terrible person. I think he's one of the biggest people responsible for all the rifts and the ire and the biliousness and the nastiness in the Son of Sam community. I think he's a liar. I think that he manipulates situations, and I also think he's a disgusting person for what I'm about to say. So he hears about Wendy Savino and he puts out a comment. He goes, "Well, I guess I'm the third victim now, not the second." So I'm so sorry to hear about Wendy. No sympathy for Wendy. No, like, oh man, as a fellow victim, I feel for you. You were shot even worse than me. 5 bullets went in you. With me, it was just like 1 bullet and it nicked off something. It wasn't a direct hit. You had it way worse than me. You were in ICU for 2 months. You were blind. You had your eyes shot out. None of that. His first thing was, oh, now I guess I'm the third victim. So this is just an insight into the way this guy thinks. And it's a reason why I dropped him like a bad habit 2 or 3 years ago and have been thinking about and have been saying to the world that this guy is a piece of crap. So there's nothing on Denaro or Lomino Damasi in the archives. The archives, and remember, during this time period, Wendy did not know who shot her. No one did. There was no son of Sam. And this is proof because remember, she identified David Berkowitz, alias son of Sam, at my home at Medtum Green, Kent, England, to Detective Inspector Bernard Swift as my assailant on October 10th, 1977, from 10 photographs furnished by Bronx District Attorney Mario Marola's office. No response. She misspelled response. Big deal. No response. This was written in real time. In 1977, this was written, or slightly thereafter. Okay? So again, more proof that she's been saying this, and not only more proof that she's been saying it, but proof that she actually alerted the authorities and nothing was done. So there's nothing on Carl or the Lomino Damasi shooting, because I just think it went unnoticed in this early period of time. So the next article that we find is from January 31st, 1977, and of course it's about Christine Freund. Shots fired into car, kill her in embrace. An attractive 26-year-old secretary who was sitting with her boyfriend in his car in Forest Hill, Queens, was fatally wounded yesterday when an unknown assailant crept up and fired 3 shots through the window at close range. Unknown assailant. Sounds just like Wendy's shooting. Fired shots through the window at close range. Sounds just like Wendy's shooting. 2 of the bullets ripped into Christine Freund of 5918 Linden Street, Ridgewood, Queens. She was struck once in the side of the head and once in the shoulder. The 3rd bullet ricocheted off the windshield. Her friend, John Deal, 30, was not hurt. Police said there was no apparent motive for the slaying. However, homicide detectives recalled 3 other similar incidences in recent months in Floral Park, Flushing, and the Bronx, involving a gunman who approached the car and fired shots through the window. I can think of a 4th incident, the Wendy Savino incident. Now, what's interesting here is that this is where the cops, as we've learned about in our Freund series that I did with Catalano, this is where the cops first start publicly making a connection between all of these shootings. Now, internally, they actually made a connection after Lomino Damasi, and that's reflected in the Denaro reports, where there's a file inserted in the Denaro reports about the Lomino Damasi. Just like in the Donna reports, there's a file inserted about Wendy. See what I'm saying? So, but publicly, it was this moment, and this is why the Savinos started to pick up these articles again, because this was when the cops made this connection. Miss Freund, who works for Reynolds Security, 42 Broadway, had planned to become engaged to Deal on Valentine's Day, February 14th. They had been going steady since they met 7 years ago. They had gone to the movies Saturday night and then to a restaurant. Then they walked to Deal's car, which was parked near the Long Island Railroad Station. Not a lover's lane, by the way. Deal, a bartender who lives at 6158 Gates Avenue, Ridgewood, said they were planning to go to Ridgewood Hall to attend the Masonic dance. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. They were attending a Masonic dance. That means they were involved in their own shootings as Masons. It was about 12:30 a.m. when I opened up the car, leaned over, and opened her door, he said. Deal said that while the engine was warming up, they had kissed each other. We were in the car at most 2 minutes, and we were just ready to take off when all of a sudden I heard a crash, Deal said. The window came in. It didn't sound like a firecracker. It was a bang. Chris slumped over onto my shoulder. Then I ran out of the car and yelled for help. Deal stopped at one car at the red light at the intersection of Burns 71st and hysterically told the couple in it what had happened. They drove him back to his car, left him there, and went to call police. Blah, blah, blah. We've learned all we did this all to death in our Christine Freund series. So I don't want to read everything or analyze everything. But here we have the photograph of so Ricardo saying, I'm not trying to prove it. I guess I'm still trying to give arguments in favor of it. But yeah, I fully 100% believe Wendy was shot by Savino. And ultimately, the only people whose opinions really matter are the Bronx District Attorney's Office, which concluded that Berkowitz shot her. And they would have arrested him on the spot, given the same evidence. And also, of course, the great detectives of the Bronx Homicide Squad and the Cold Case Squad, who are grade A detectives and whose opinions carry a lot more weight than mine. They've come to the conclusion and they've closed the case. So this case is part of the history now. But I always know that there's going to be asterisks to the case because it wasn't proven in a court of law. And also, I fully am aware that the people criticizing this, I see everything. I don't respond to it because it's pointless. They just hate my guts. That's their motivation. They hate me, so therefore they don't believe Wendy. But that's not really a good methodology for trying to find truth in anything. Hatred is not a good motivator. But whatever, that's fine by me. I mean, I don't really care. So, shots fired in car. So, bullets shatter a dream. Now, I don't want to sit here and read everything because it just takes a lot of time. But it's kind of cool just to see the pictures. Christine Freund and John Deal 7 years ago. So they were together for quite a while. This wasn't like a young teenage couple necking in a car. This was, again, the perfect example of Berkowitz went out every night, considered this his job. He was a stalking sniper who was driving the streets of New York City every night looking for victims. And if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time when Disco Dave entered your realm, he was going to shoot you. That was the long and short of it. So these two people whose relationship was quite long at this point, 7 years at least, their lives intertwined with David Berkowitz. It could have gone any other way. If they had seen an earlier movie, they wouldn't have been there. If they had stayed a little longer at the wine gallery, they wouldn't have been there at that exact moment when Disco Dave and them passed each other on the street. And it's like that with every victim, except maybe for Donna Lauria, who I believe was actually stalked. Because remember, we have the testimony from DJ Tony Amato, who stated unequivocally that David Berkowitz was a regular in those weeks before the Peachtree shooting. I'm sorry, before the Lauria shooting. He was a regular at the Peachtree in New Rochelle over there on the east side of the county, quite near where Wendy was shot. And it's very possible that he stalked her home that night. But that's all speculation. So John Deal and his mother with an album of pictures of Miss Freund. So again, a lot of this article is here. Did I see anybody? All right. See, this is what's interesting also. And I'm going to use this to make another argument against some of the critiques that have come in. Even though I'm not trying to prove the Wendy story, I still will respond to certain critiques because they're all so dumb. It's so fun to make fun of this stuff. So one of the critiques going around about the Wendy shooting, David never smiled. Now, let's put aside the fact that his smile was like one of the biggest news stories when he was arrested. The smile was famous. They were talking about his smile. And let's discount the fact that John Rinciari in 1974 told John Comparetto, I don't want to hang around with this guy Berkowitz because of his weird smile and laugh. He would do this weird giggle and grin that Rinciari found to be very off-putting. Let's just put that all to the side for a second, okay? These documented facts of the case with him smiling. To say that the victims didn't see him smiling is the height of stupidity, if you think about it, because his victims didn't see him. First of all, 6 died. Can you ask them if they saw anything? When you ask Valentina if she saw him smiling, please let me know when that answer comes in, okay? Not to sound glib or cold about it, but when Stacy Moskowitz is interviewed and tells you what she saw, please alert me to that fact, okay? And then, of course, Carl saw nothing. Rosemary saw nothing. Stacy and Robert saw nothing. Sal and Lupo saw nothing. Sal, Lupo, and Judy Placido saw nothing, except Lupo described a person exactly as the Savino shooter. He said it was the hair slicked back, wavy hair slicked back, right? But here, I didn't even know this was in here, but this proves my point. Did I see anybody? No, nobody. Not then, not later. So you can't say that this guy Berkowitz wasn't smiling at the shootings because there were no eyewitnesses to him right before his shooting. The only eyewitnesses to Berkowitz shooting them were Joanne Lomino and Donna DeMasi and Wendy Savino. And all three of those give the exact same description of a seemingly friendly guy coming up. In Wendy's case, it was a smile. And in Lomino DeMasi's case, it was, he started asking us for directions. And in both cases, immediately after that initial friendly little interaction, he pulled out a gun and shot them. It was the same exact MO. It wasn't a similar MO. It was the exact MO. So cool photos. Let me just turn a light on real quick. Sorry. So cool photos. And I'll put these articles, some of these articles that I don't read, I'll put them on my Twitter for those who are really interested. So then the next one, of course, is all about this. Freund is still about Freund, February 1st, 1977. And of course, notice in these articles that there's no ramping up of fear yet. There's no Son of Sam. Son of Sam doesn't exist until April of 77, two months from now. But they're starting to make the connections. See Forest Hill's killing tied to 76 shootings. More than 50 detectives are investigating possible links between the mysterious murder of Christine Freund in Forest Hills, Queens, early Sunday, and 3 episodes, it should say 4, 2 in Queens and 1 in the Bronx. 2 young women have been killed and 3 were wounded, one of them seriously in the 4 incidents. We are leaning towards a connection in all these cases, said Sergeant Richard Conlon of the Queens 15th Homicide Zone. Now, think of Wendy when I read this next passage. In each of these cases, a single gunman acting without apparent motive emerged in the early morning darkness to shoot down his unsuspecting victims. Miss Freund, an attractive 26-year-old secretary who was sitting in the car with the man to whom she was to become engaged on Valentine's Day, was killed by an unknown assailant. Unknown, that's the same word that's in Wendy Savino's headline, who crept up and fired 3 shots through the window. Shortly after midnight, here they're talking about Lomino, okay, and so on and so forth. Another near victim of apparently motiveless shooting was Carl Denaro. He was wearing a piercing eyes, so that's what Wendy noticed, the blue eyes. She said he had a leather jacket on, which may or may not have been the one John Comparetto lent him that he never got back. But by the official Son of Sam, right, post Lauria, he was wearing his green 3/4 length coat because he was emulating Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver. He said it. We don't need to speculate on it. Berkowitz admitted to that. So we don't need to go through all of these. In the Bronx incident where a man crept up to a double parked car from an apartment and so on and so forth. So Miss Valenti said she did not recognize the killer. Even Valenti didn't see Berkowitz before the shooting. She only saw him during the shooting. So, of course, here we have the 2 sketches, the police sketches in the Lomino DeMasi and the slaying in the Bronx. So, of course, sketches in Son of Sam is something that's very controversial and one which I've evolved my thinking on. I used to do the groupthink thing. I would just say it because everyone else around me was saying it. I would say, oh, none of those sketches look like Berkowitz. And once you actually learn about the case and you actually study these sketches, they all start to actually look like Berkowitz. And I know what you're saying about this one. Oh, it's John Carr. Well, I don't know. That's Berkowitz. That's Berkowitz. He had the cap. That's definitely Berkowitz. And this is Berkowitz too. You know how I know that? Because look at the parted hairstyle And then look at these two pictures of Berkowitz with the same exact freaking hairstyle. This is 1970 at the Shore Haven Beach Club in the East Bronx. This is his 1979 press conference where he's saying that the demon dog didn't tell me to do it. Berkowitz had this hairstyle. It was one of the many hairstyles that he sported during his Son of Sam spree. And of course, we have the Savino shooting, which is the most lookalike to David Berkowitz out of all of the sketches. I mean, this is a spitting image of Berkowitz. We have the Donna Lauria shooter, which of course, what's highly interesting about this is that this was drawn in May of 76, the Savino shooting. This was drawn in August of 76 after the Lauria shooting. Notice that the hair is about 4 months longer in this picture over here on the right than it is on the left. Berkowitz was in the throes of insanity. He wasn't even getting a haircut. He was letting his hair grow. This guy's mental mindset was deteriorating so much that he wasn't even keeping his hair cut. Okay. Now, what's interesting about all this is, so of course, this is the original right here, and this is the one. But of course, what's really interesting about these sketches is that here's a screenshot from the one of the upcoming newspapers. This was done August 10th, 1977. This was right before his arrest, actually. This was the last newspaper before they recognized, before they arrested Berkowitz. Now, I want you to notice a few things here. We're going to read the description. Male, white, 25 to 32, 5'8 to 5'9", 165 to 170, good athletic type build, clean shaven, dark almond shaped eyes, dark wavy hair, sensuous mouth, high cheekbones. That's exactly how Wendy described him. Okay. And here, of course, we have male, white, 30s, 5'9", 160. And she talked about how this sketch should have actually had a more of a hooky nose, and it should have had more sensuous and full lips. So Wendy's sketch matched this sketch of the Son of Sam, the one out of Brooklyn, like almost to a T. 25 to 32, 5'9", 165, dark wavy hair, sensuous mouth, high cheekbones. And then, of course, the Lauria is the same exact sketch as the male, white, 5'9", 160 pound, late 20s, curly dark hair, clean shaven, light complexion, wearing a blue polo shirt with dark pants. This is the same description. You know why? Because this is all drawings of the same person. These are all drawings of David Berkowitz. The one that looks the most like David Berkowitz is, of course, the Savino shooting. This is David Berkowitz's mirror image. This is an identical twin. And I would just like to know, for those who don't think that Berkowitz did it, what other identical twin to Berkowitz was shooting people at the same time period, with the same MO, in the same kill zone, and just happened to do it after a dog incident. I mean, Berkowitz has the worst luck if someone else did this, because it's an identical twin. But of course, we don't need to worry about that because we know that it was him. So the next article is, of course, February 2nd, 1977. So Super Strike said, "Oh, for sure, Manny, Berkey was losing it. I'm just joking around that it would have been funny if he got a mohawk like Travis Bickle." See, he never would have done that, though, because his whole deal was that he fit into the crowd. He was somebody who you would never suspect would do this, and that was, he even used that as his weapon. He talked to Abramson about how he loved his face. He used his innocent lip. He even said he uses his lips and his blue eyes as weapons to make his prey more calm. That's exactly what he did to Wendy in that night in Nina's restaurant. So the next one is February 2nd. So this is from the Daily Mail. So this was in England, okay? This was a letter. This was something that obviously Wendy had collected because she was in England getting the Daily Mail. And probably what happened is she heard from Joe back in New York about the new shooting, and she went out to see if it was in the local papers, and she did find it. The Mad Sniper. Now that's an interesting description because this is actually very close, the closest description to what Berkowitz actually was, a mad sniper. Who has terrorized New York since last November, claimed his sixth victim last night. Attractive 26-year-old secretary Christine Freud, they didn't put the N, died within minutes after 3 bullets were fired through the window of her fiance's car. The couple had just left the cinema and were sitting in the car in the Queens district waiting for the engine to warm up when the gunman struck. Christine just fell right over and died in my arms, said her fiancé, John Deal. There was no motive for this. I never saw anyone. Suddenly, the car window shattered and there was blood on Christine and she was dead. 2 other young women have been killed in this way in the past few months and 3 seriously injured, should say 4. We believe there's a clear connection in all these cases, said Sergeant Richard Conlon of the Queens 15th Homicide Zone. There is a pattern. The sniper's first official victim, we will now say, because his first known was Wendy, was an 18-year-old nurse sitting with another nurse in a car in the Bronx. The first bullet crashed through the car's window, killing Donna Lauria after striking her in the temple. The second entered the thigh of the driver, Jody Valenti, age 19. Police say this motiveless crime is one of the most difficult to solve. So far, the sniper has made no attempt to steal or confront his victims, who appear to be chosen at random. I don't know who this madman is, said John Deal. Christine didn't have an enemy in the world. Now, this is interesting. Motiveless crime. No attempt to steal or confront his victims. I'll just add no sexual nature of these crimes either. Right? No touching. The victims aren't physically touched. This could be describing Wendy's shooting right now. And this is why when we looked at every file with the cops about this shooting and they were investigating the hell out of her husband, it led nowhere because there were no eyewitnesses to this shooting. They canvassed the entire block. There were 0 people who saw this actually go down. And it was motiveless. It was a stranger shooting. And that's why it was never officially solved or broken or closed until we came along in 2024 with all this new information. That's the thing that people don't understand. Oh, the evidence is the same now as it was back then. Yeah, to a degree, but the research the research landscape has completely changed. We now know about his pattern of writing letters and then going out shooting people, and then we can fit Wendy into that. We now know about the fact that he had other guns and was shooting other life forms with different types of guns, and that he was also a stabber as well. The evidence is the same, but the research has caught up with the evidence to be able to bring this case, the Wendy Savino case, to NYPD. And this is why NYPD took this so seriously right from the jump, because they realized right off the bat that the work that Lorenzo and I had done on this case was gold. I'm just going to put it straight up. All they had to do was go talk to Berkowitz and confirm to them. And again, I'm not privy to everything that happened in that interrogation. But the cops came out of there convinced that Berkowitz did it. And then they closed the case. So this is actually a really good article to read because it says 2 things that I want people to understand. He didn't see anybody. I never saw anyone. That's a point that I'm trying to make with the people who are saying, David never smiled. Yeah, no one saw anyone except for Wendy and Joanne and Donna. Those are the only 3 people who saw. And all of them tell almost the same exact story. And of course, this is incredibly important for you and the audience to understand, and which I was made to understand in this investigation, that stranger crime, motiveless crime with random people is almost impossible to solve. March 17th, 1977. So now, of course, Virginia Voskerichian has been killed. So we can see now how the newspaper reports, and unfortunately, I only have one article. They didn't collect very many articles on this. Actually, only one. But this is the article that's in the March 17th, 1977. I believe it's the Daily News. Seek slaying witnesses. Queens homicide detectives. Now, this is an interesting article, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Maury Terry, I'm going to do a whole show on how Maury Terry actually plagiarized a lot of these articles for his book, but he plagiarized the information, but then spun it his own way. It's actually quite devious the way he did this, but now we caught him. We know what he's all about now, right? Using people like Billy the Artist and what's that guy's name? The guy who played Danny, the snap suturer lover, the convicted child sexual abuser and stabber, who was his main informant, Vinny or Danny, I forget the guy's real name, who he went to high school with, by the way. Although no proof that they knew each other, but they were in the same high school together, which Maury never disclosed in the book. But anyway, this article talks about the chubby teenager, who Maury said was the shooter and said was the a girl from Westchester, a teenage girl from Westchester, and that was guilty. So we'll see what the cops have to say about that. So Queens homicide detective released composite sketches of two persons believed to have been near the scene of the fatal shooting of Virginia Voskerichian in Forest Hills on March 8th. And these are the two drawings right here. Now that's Berkowitz right there. And Berkowitz had this hat, so we think that this is Berkowitz as well. Captain Joseph Borelli of the Queens Homicide Squad told 150 residents at a town meeting last night that the police are seeking a white male, 25 to 30, 5 feet 10 to 6 feet tall, with dark hair. Sounds just like Wendy's shooter. The man was seen near where the 19-year-old Cod was slain shortly before 7:30 p.m. in front of 4 Dartmouth Street. Now, again, this is a shooting that took place on a city street at 7:30. It wasn't a lover's lane. Again, blowing up the myths of Son of Sam. That's my whole thing with Son of Sam now. I don't give a shit about Maury Terry. The dude was a liar. He conned all of us. Some of us were smart enough to realize it, and we have advanced our understanding of this case. Okay? But I kind of forgot where I was. I kind of forgot where I was going with that. Borelli cautioned that the men are wanted only for questioning at this time and are not suspects. He and Queens Borough Commander Chief Joseph Voivoda spoke at a special meeting of the Community Planning Board 6 called because many Forest Hill residents reportedly are afraid to leave their homes at night. Their feelings stem not only from the murder of Miss Voskerichian, but also from the shooting death of Christine Freund, 26, on January 30. Miss Freund of 5918 Linden Street was killed when someone crept up and fired 3 shots through the window of her car, where she was sitting with her boyfriend. The 2 murders took place after dark, not 100 yards apart, at the entrance to the private community of Forest Hills Gardens. Police have linked the murders through the size of the murder weapon, a .44 caliber pistol, but the gun has not been recovered, and Chief Voivoda admitted it was their only solid lead. Now, here's where Maury Terry took something and completely spun it to be a different way. Commenting on the sketch of the younger man. Now, this was the younger man who Maury said was a girl, a female from Westchester. Basically said that this was Wheat Carr. He alleged that this was Wheat Carr, or was it big-breasted Wendy? I mean, go ask Carl. Maybe he knows. Commenting on the sketch of the younger man, Borelli said last night, "Deep in my heart, I know that this teenage boy was not involved, but I feel he may have been an eyewitness. He just got scared and ran, a natural reaction, but the man must come forward. No one wants to get involved in such a horrible crime as this. And of course, nobody came forward. But I mean, look, whether they're lying or not right here in this article, it's besides the point. He said here that this was just an eyewitness. It wasn't somebody, but Maury turned this into the shooter. In either case, it's all water under the bridge. We know Berkowitz shot Virginia. All of these semantic discussions about who this was versus who this was. We've dealt with all of that on the Virginia Boskorichian series, where we debunked many of Maury's myths, including the myth of the jogger. We reenacted the jogger scene, and we realized that Maury completely lied about that. And our last article of the day. I'm not sure where this comes from. Pretty sure that this is in a New York paper. Oh, wait, New York Post. Oh, it says it right here. New York Post, February 2nd, 77. All right, so this should have actually been earlier in the presentation. My apologies. But this is basically the same article about how they were search for a woman's killer points to a nut with a gun. So police are scouring criminal and medical records as they try to zero in on the killer of a young woman in a car in Forest Hills. They are going now in the theory. So remember, the cops knew nothing at this point. Their theory was correct. The gunman is probably the same one who has committed 3 similar crimes in the past 7 months, right? So they were right about that. Admitting the evidence tying the 4 similar incidents together is scarce, one source said, "If I had to guess, I would say there is a nut running around." But Homicide Sergeant Richard Conlon would not go so far as to say that the police are leaning towards one-man theory, basically because they've been unable to uncover any hint of motive in the shooting. So far, he said, the people involved are absolutely clean, meaning the people who got shot. So this is interesting. They were thinking maybe it was possibly a 2-person or a group of people, but they are leaning towards the one-man theory. And so on and so forth. I'm just seeing if there's anything really that needs to be read. Compare notes. 3 similar shootings where a lone gunman suddenly fired on unsuspecting victims. What's amazing is how Wendy's case was already getting thrown under the radar. Her case, even though she was shot by David and had all the hallmarks of a Son of Sam shooting. Forget about the gun. The gun's irrelevant. He got the 44 after he saw a taxi driver after he shot Wendy. Also, he needed a more powerful gun to actually kill people because he shot Wendy 5 times with a 32 and he watched her crawl away and she was still alive. So, of course, he had to upgrade. And then he sees taxi driver and that's it. It's a sign from God. Everything lines up for him. But you can see here, it's like the tragedy of Wendy's story was already happening. They were not connecting her case or including her case in this at all. Hence, almost 50 years going by, and it takes a YouTuber with his detective friend to give Wendy justice. And that, folks, is where we're going to leave it for today. We'll start the next show, whenever it is, with the next incident or the next series of articles. And there's going to be all sorts of little spin-offs of this because I'm going to do a show on Maury Terry's victimization of Wendy Savino, because Wendy Savino is a victim of Maury Terry. That will become clear as we go along. We're going to see some of the cool Newsweek articles that kind of aren't part of this whole deal. And I'm going to do shows on just little random interesting things that come up. But the Wendy Savino archives are the gift that keeps on giving. And one of the beautiful things about it for me as a Son of Sam researcher is the perspective that it gives me. Now we are able to, because of what Wendy and her family did in 1977. Yeah, we could have looked up this on the archives, but it wouldn't have been so cool. What we can do now is we can document this one family, the Savino family's journey through the Son of Sam case as it went on in real time, and also, in a sense, experience what New York City was experiencing at the same time. So we see how in today's articles, there was no media hype or sensation. They had no clue what was going on. The formations of this Son of Sam spree was just starting to gel in the detectives' minds, but they weren't sure. Of course, it would take the next shooting in April of 1977 of Valentina Suriani and Alexander Esau to really break the dam open. And we actually see that reflected in Savino's archives, because whereas all of these early articles, there's only single newspapers or a little clipping and not the entire newspaper, starting from April 17th, when Valentina and Alex get shot, there's like five to seven April newspapers. Then when Judy gets shot, there's several newspapers. And then when he shoots Stacy and Robert, and then he gets arrested, there's like a ton of newspapers, and all with really great articles with pictures that we've never seen before. So we got a lot of fun stuff to do, and I'm really great we got this little injection of new information and a new perspective on Son of Sam that we can bring you, because yeah, these are old articles. Yeah, we could have looked at them on the archives, and yeah, we could have done it that way, but in my opinion, doing it this way is really the best, because we're looking at it through the eyes of a victim. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go chill for the rest of the night and watch the Mets lose or win. I'm not quite sure which one, but they're on a losing streak lately. And but I just enjoy the game of baseball, and sometimes I just root for whoever's losing or whoever's winning. It doesn't even matter, because I just love the game. I always have, and find it extremely relaxing. So everybody, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today, and we will see you on the next episode of the Wendy Savino Archives. Thank you very much.